Well, influence basically is about getting things done, I think, which means looking at the issues that arise, try to make a solid analysis of what the issue is, think about it, think about consequences, about things you can do or things that you should not do, and then get the issue or the issues into the political process, which means into the process which finally leads to decisions, which inevitably means negotiating. And so in order to get things done, you need to negotiate, you need to try to get a majority behind your ideas, or behind the consensus, your ideas that you are supporting. And I think that's basically where you get your influence from. If you all manage to do things in that direction, then I think you gain influence. And maybe I will surprise you, and that is maybe more linked to my activities as coordinator in the Econ Committee. I think the biggest achievement of the Parliament over the past year is the way in which thinking has begun to change on the climate issue and the Green Deal. Let me be very clear. Of course, the climate change is an important issue and an issue that demands urgency. But we come from a situation in the beginning of this parliamentary mandate where nothing else counted. And I've always said and argued, please, let's also think about other issues which are directly or indirectly related to the climate change discussion. For example, the discussion on nuclear energy, just to mention one example. 3 years ago, that kind of discussion was practically impossible. This year, there is a remarkable change of attitude. The urgency of the climate issue is still very much on the table, but the way in which the discussion is going is, I think, a very positive one, a much broader one, a much more socially acceptable. Because one of my fears was that with that extreme and exclusive focus on climate, we would lose a lot of people. We would get a lot of opposition, which to a certain extent happened. Les Gilets jaunes is a manifestation, I think, of that uneasiness, of that being over-focused on the issue. And I think that's a remarkable change this year. Authority or the budget committee is concerned, the whole discussion on the multi-annual financial framework, which we agreed 3 years ago, and which goes over 7 years, as you probably know, that's of course outdated with everything that happened in the world, the Ukraine war, the pandemic, and all those things, the new situation in the Middle East. We started a negotiation on that revision. It's still ongoing, it's far from concluded, but I think we were able to assemble a very broad majority in the Parliament for these negotiations. Yeah, I think if you're, with all due respect, at the fringes of the political spectrum, it is much more easy to articulate extreme positions, and of course in the broader media, more extreme positions are more easily to articulate, and of course are always somewhat more flashy to catch and to elaborate upon. So it's a little bit more easy for people from the whether it's the right or the left, to take more extreme positions that will get you easy access to the media, but it of course doesn't help you much, to say the least, if you want to be in the political process where finally the decisions are made and where you can have an impact. And I've been part of discussions where what was finally decided was certainly not my full opinion, but where, in all modesty, I contributed to getting the final outcome a little bit closer to what my ideas were. So you can say, okay, if I don't get where I am intellectually 100%, then I don't join. Okay, that's an attitude, that's not my attitude. I try to get as close to my 100% as democratically possible. And I think that explains a little bit the what you were saying about being more visible on certainly in social media, as opposed to having somewhat more trouble to be able to explain the more consensus-like position that you take.
I fully agree. The Parliament is an institution of consensus and compromise and cooperation, and for me, I think it's.
Which does not mean that you can be forceful.
No, of course.
That you have to. I'm thinking about one file, the Energy Tax Directive, where we got in such a discussion where I said, no, this cannot pass from me.
Mm-hmm.
So either we stop or we take a break. We took a break. We will see where we get next time. But there is a limit to what you can accept.
Yeah,
and that takes sometimes some exercise and some experience to deal with it. But as you know, having been more than 4 years in the Belgian government, that's a good place to learn how to be flexible and movable and strategic. Good question, which means that I don't have immediately a good answer. It has changed, certainly. The media landscape has become more diverse. Basically, the messenger is, I think, for me, more important than the channel that's being used. Sometimes I read very interesting things being said by people on certain media that I don't appreciate too much, and vice versa. Sometimes I read in excellent media some opinions where I think, my God, where is this coming from? So it's for me, it's a little bit diverse, and it's of course becoming more and more demanding to follow all this and to make to have a good judgment on what exactly is happening, who's telling what. What does that mean? Is that a formal position, or is that more something to get a reaction from certain groups, so that the person in question knows where the red lines are or where the possible landing zone is? But that has become certainly more complicated. Certainly, I think the main, as far as I experienced it, the main problem for communication is that for a huge portion of the population within the EU, what happens in the EU is far away from them, and a lot of people have the impression that whatever these guys in Brussels are doing, they just do it, and we don't have any say about it, etc., etc. So it's very hard to get the message across that no, this is a democratic process, maybe not exactly 100% as democracy should go. I mean, in a normal democracy, a parliament has more power, has more influence, but that's the way it has been constructed, that's the way things are evolving. But getting your message across to the broader public opinion from is when you work inside the European, the EU institutions, is very difficult. Within the Parliament, there's still a truckload of files with respect to, for example, the banking union, competition policy, economic governance, that are awaiting approval. And sometimes we cannot force it, because if you have to go into the trilogue discussions with the Council and the Commission, then of course you depend on the two others to really finalize your work. As far as I'm concerned, for the coming weeks, I hope not months, we'll see, is of course that revision of the multi-annual financial framework, the main item on the agenda, to make sure that we do what needs to be done. I'm thinking about, for example, and not least, the assistance for Ukraine, which will demand a huge effort and a lot of money, and a lot of creativity to make sure that money ends up where it should end up, if you know what I mean. So that's certainly an item that is very important. Related to that is also to keep intact the integrity of the budget, because I think that the very last thing the European Union needs at this moment is that we would get I hope we won't get there, and I will do everything in my power to avoid it, in a situation where citizens would say, my God, is that what they are doing with our money? I think that would be very, very bad for the European Union if we get into a situation like that. And if you don't have sufficient accountability and tools to have control, if you put milk beside the cat, she will lick.